place to be is living free in Tennessee.
Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Tuesday, October 21st, 2025, and this is episode 1091 of Living Free in Tennessee. And I just got a comment from the online folks saying the crunching is my favorite part. So when I put together that intro video, what I did was I used Canva and I used stock video, but I have the premium service so I can pay for the stock version. And then it had like chewing sheep with no sound. And I was like, well, that's dumb. So I went and found a popcorn chewing sound and added it there. So anyway, I just sort of did that to get about a 30-second intro. And the reason I do that is sometimes YouTube puts a 30-second commercial at the beginning of my live stream for some people, even though I have monetization turned off when we're live. So it allows everybody to get tuned in for the beginning of the show. And I see we got Debbie and Pippinized in the live stream saying hello. So happy Tuesday, everybody. As I mentioned in the weekly Monday email, we are going to a Tuesday, Friday schedule for the rest of the year. And that's because it is coffee roasting season for Christmas presents. Nobody's overtly said Christmas presents yet, but I get a big uptick right about now through right before Christmas. And I've been spending a lot more time in the coffee roasting shack, and I decided just to admit it and not try to like shoehorn in 3 shows a week during coffee roasting, like the height of coffee roasting season. So we are on a Tuesday, Friday schedule. So what are we going to talk about today, though? Is it going to be coffee? No. Nope. I'm going to talk to you about lessons learned from the Airbnb that we opened up here at the Holler Hub at Base Camp Lodge and how that revenue stream's working. Some things that haven't worked that we've learned about. And I wanted to share that with y'all in case you want to start your own Airbnb on your own property or glamping spot or hip camp spot or whatever that is. I've done Airbnb and hip camp on and off for many years. So I didn't quite go in eyes closed, but this time was an interesting cycle. And I want to share that with you. If you have questions along the way, put the word question in all caps in the live stream, and I'll do my best to work them in. If you're listening to the audio version of this show, which is about, I don't know, I guess it's 10 or 100x my, yeah, it's 100x my listeners. It's not 10x, it's 100x on the audio. You can also email me, Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com. Of course, because Tuesday is like our quote unquote Monday show, I'll have my usual weekly segments before we jump into that topic, though. And let's start with our featured event. The featured event this week is the November 15th Farm to Table Dinner at the Holler Hub at Base Camp Lodge. We're going to put tables up and tablecloths and serve dinner that we've sourced from folks in our network in Tennessee producing real food. We're highlighting meat from the Holler Homestead, from Katy Fork Farms, and from Hoff Grid Meat Company. In fact, Emily Hoff connected me with the person who is going to give us the salad greens. We are foraging some of the vegetable sides off my property, and I'm not sure who we're using as the dairy. I actually know who I want to use, but I haven't talked to them about it yet, and if they want to be advertised as part of it. But we are sourcing the dairy here locally for the ice cream, and basically doing a farm to table dinner the way they should be, which is with a guest chef who knows how to take food from its basic elements into a delicious meal and without a bunch of Cisco fillers. And, like a lot of farm to table dinners are like, we got the meat from here, but everything else came from Walmart or wherever. We're not doing that. We're doing an actual farm to table dinner. Everything that's reasonable to source from the farm we're doing. Like the pepper does not come from a farm in Tennessee because I don't know of any pepper farms in Tennessee, but I'm excited about this. I think the best part of this has been all the conversations with the farmers who are super stoked about supporting this dinner. We are buying from them though, although I could offer them sponsorships. That wouldn't hurt. Anyway, tickets are $125 per meal. Bring your own alcoholic beverage if you want one. That actually gets us around a lot of regulations as we talked about last week on this topic, but it's November 15th, starts at 5:30, so you can drive home at a reasonable amount of time in Lancaster, Tennessee. If you want to come an hour early, Carrie Brown from Strong Roots Resources is doing a wild edible walk, and the wild edible forage is being built into that meal. Boom. I'm pretty excited about. I'm looking forward to this event. In case you couldn't tell, I'm pretty stoked about it. Livingfreeintennessee.com is where you get your tickets for that. Speaking of strongrootsresources.com, that's one of today's show sponsors. They do homestead design consulting, high quality plants, and help you build resilient edible systems on your homestead. They've also got classes they run out there at Strong Roots Resources from time to time, like how to do rotational grazing, wild edible walks. You just like, those are something you can just keep going to, because depending on the time of year, it's different. They do a lot of cool stuff. Check that out, strongrootsresources.com. Our second sponsor of today's show is somebody I got to talk to today because I am experiencing the consequences of my own inaction. And I didn't file taxes on time for one of my businesses, and I got an IRS fine for that, even though I didn't owe any taxes on that business. And as I said, consequences of my own making. And so I'm filing an abatement, and that's been fun because I love paperwork. But I was able to work with one of my favorite tax advisors, Matthew Sursley from agristaxadvice.com, to just sort of learn more about that process. He is not representing me or anything. I mean, he probably does that for hire. I don't know. He's not working in my state, so I wouldn't have done that. But I was just like, how does this work? And I don't get it. And they tell me to mail it somewhere, and then the somewhere they tell me to mail it isn't it. So anyway, he's spent a lot of time learning about the tax code, which is super helpful when you're looking at just sort of what you're doing financially and how that works best for you to keep more of your money in your pocket, because you should take advantage of the tax code. And most of the tax code is how not to pay taxes. So legally. Anyway, if you work with agristaxadvice.com, what he'll do is he'll analyze your finances, talk to you about ways to structure your business, talk to you about tax write-offs you may not see in your tax returns, that sort of thing that you should think about, how to document them. That's key. I've learned so much about documenting things like mileage, which I was documenting wrong at one point in my life. But after working with Matthew and reading his downloadable guide, I have a better idea about how to document that as well, in case I ever have to have that conversation where I have to prove the documentation. Anyway, if you want to work with him, check them out at agristaxadvice.com. agristaxadvice.com/LFTN has that downloadable guide. You'll get signed up for his email, and he sends not every week, but a weekly-ish email about just one thing of the tax code you may not be aware of. It could be related to your personal taxes. It could be related to business taxes, but helpful to know. And it'll be like things like, is this a home office write-off? Bleh. And then the answer is yes or no, or maybe, or it is in this situation and not in this situation. And that's how you have to track it. And, those sorts of things. Really helpful advice. agristaxadvice.com. I also want to remind you, I feel like did you ever go to summer camp? Like, announcements. A terrible death to die. A terrible death to die. A terrible death to be talked to death. A terrible death to die. Announcements. We used to sing that song, and then we had announcements. Sometimes when I have a lot to say about what's going on in the network, I feel like that's what I'm doing, and it's not sinking in, right? And I'm like, if it's not sinking in for me, probably the people who are listening, it's not sinking in for them. Beth Emily says, I wish I lived closer. That's probably the farm to table dinner. Beth Emily, we're planning to do them quarterly in 2026. So my goal is to get that schedule out for next year soon. Probably not before Jack's workshop. Anyway, the reason I am singing the announcements song is that Sunday, when we had our chainsaw milling demonstration and potluck, one of the attendees walked up to me and said, hey, Nicole, got any stockings? And I was like, yeah. And I handed him a Christmas stocking. And the reason I did is because we have an LFTN stocking exchange. And it's basically like a mail, like mailing USPS mail, not mail as in male, female. It's a mail Secret Santa to people in our network. And we're doing stockings. $20 or less is the total budget. if you were to sign up to be part of that Secret Santa, what you're agreeing to do is mail a stocking to somebody that you've spent $20 or less on by this. You mail it out around December 1st. You'll get your person on November 1st ish from Margot, and she's just sort of randomizing how that works. Well, she mailed me like 10 stockings that she got super closeout deal last year, because she is also the person who gives us frugality tips and she practices what she preaches. And so to save on your $20, you can get a stocking from me. And the cool thing about this is when we do the stocking exchange next year, you'll have the stocking somebody sent you to use. So it's like a one-time purchase sort of deal if you keep participating in the Christmas stocking exchange. Anyway, to sign up for that, we have 2 Canadians now. So if you're in Canada hearing this, there's a Canada pool now where you don't have to mail outside of the country. Just go to livingfreeintennessee.com to sign up. If you don't sign up by Halloween, by the end of the day on Halloween, what's going to happen is she starts sending out who's people's Secret Santa stocking person is, and so that we can shop for them and or make handmade items. And you'll just end up not being able to participate. So I just want to remind you, LFTN Christmas Stocking Exchange is coming to a close in like 10 days. So livingfreeintennessee.com to get that. Or if you are subscribed to my weekly mail that goes out on Monday, just tells you what's going on for the week and any random thoughts I'm having. The link is in that email as well. If you just sort of got it, scanned it, and didn't really look closely, it's down there. I think I'll probably do a pretty big highlight next Monday. Like that's going to be the core topic. There's always like a core topic, last week's shows, any events coming up. I don't have an event calendar for October this time, only because I realized that letting the perfect be the enemy of the good was not what I was going to do. And the perfect was I would like to have that put together, but October got pretty busy with Self-Reliance Festival, and I didn't want to just put my events on and not other network events, because the purpose of the calendar is it's a community calendar, which means people from the community. So we'll have that out in November again, and hopefully I'll have it more automated for 2026. That's what we're working on, so that it's not a big, because it's a big manual process that takes me an hour to 2 hours every month before the month starts. And I'd like to not have it be that. So that's on my automate this list. Like you make this, you're like, I do this the same every single time. You're like, I feel like that's an opening for automation. Anyway, get signed up for the LFTN Christmas Stocking Exchange. If you're coming to the December 20th Christmas reception we do one every year, the Saturday before Christmas. And your stocking person's going to be there. I bet we could do an in-person handoff and not have any mailing, but that just depends on who your stocking person is and if you want to keep it secret or not. I keep getting a weird computer pop-up thing, and I don't know why, and it's driving me nuts. It just puts this like home message in the middle of my screen, and I can't see through it. I can't move it. I can't close it. I just have to click on it. So I got to figure that one out too. These are the frustrations of my life. But we're talking about Airbnb today, aren't we? Not yet. You know what we're talking about next? Tales from the Prepper Pantry, where we talk about storing what you use and using what you store. And in the last week, we've had a lot of lambs come in from the butcher, and we've had a fair number of lambs go back out. So the processing happened successfully. We've had several pickups. I've got one person meeting tactical when he goes to get a pig we're buying from Hofgrid Meat Company. And it's all coming together. So I've just got a couple people I haven't heard from when they want to pick it up. I'll reach out to them directly in another couple of weeks if I haven't heard from them. If you are hearing this going, I haven't gotten any email from Nicole about my lamb, check your spam folder, and it will have your final invoice as well as pickup instructions and how to get hold of me. But we've been having a lot of fun with this process. So it is time to harvest sweet potatoes. We're into the last minute time to harvest sweet potatoes in Tennessee. We haven't had our first frost yet. We got close on Sunday night, but we haven't had it. And once we have the first frost, I think you have 8 hours after the frost to get your potatoes out of the ground, or they don't store well. They will rot faster. So I plan to get mine out. I was going to do it today. It's not going to happen today. It might happen tomorrow. Tomorrow is a dedicated video day for the homestead to start getting our how-to videos out on a more regular schedule. And that's just because Wednesday is, I can just roast coffee and not do anything else but videos that day. I'm really finding like concentrating primary objectives, not just the my three things, but like the big picture. It's Holler Roast on Monday, and it's Living Free in Tennessee podcast on Tuesday, and it's the videos on Wednesday. Then it's Holler Roast on Thursday, and then it's Living Free in Tennessee podcast on Friday, and then Saturday is supposed to be homestead focused, but often what happens is I'm like, I still haven't sent this email. I do a little clerical that day too, and then Sunday off. I'm finding that works pretty well, so I'm probably going to add that layer in to the my three things process. Like if you're really getting into this scattershot world that I'm in right now, it's a good idea to know which day is what's your primary focus that day. In addition to your my three things that you're, it's not like a fourth thing. It's just like you want to build your my three things around the primary focus. And probably ultimately I want fewer foci. That's the plural of focus, right? It's foci. Anyway, so we are also restacking and moving all our firewood around and then refilling for the, so I get my firewood a year in advance. I actually don't cut my own firewood. I know how. It's a lot of work. It doesn't cost me that much to pay the guy who does the nice oak hardwood firewood that he delivers here once a year. So I let him. And so I call it the great restacking. So I'm moving my firewood for this year under Taj Mahaler, which is covered. And then the new load is, like Tactical's already gotten his, mine is next. And I just have to tell the guy when we want it and make sure we know where we're stacking it. I still don't have a woodshed. So what will happen in the future after the woodshed's built and being used as a woodshed is eventually that'll just all go under the woodshed on a rotation, just like your pantry, right? Load from the back, take from the front sort of thing. Only it'll be side to side because you don't want to have to scoot wood in your woodshed. But that is part of, like it's not traditional pantry, but it is supplies. And that's what we do in advance of winter. So I like to have 2-year-old firewood. So he cut this last October for me and it sat in his barn for a year. He brings it over. It's the same person I work with every time. And it sits here for a year before I use it. And that works really great in my soapstone stove, right? And then, of course, other random firewood we get around here from trees coming down either gets used by Nighthawk in his stove, Tactical in his stove, or in any of our fire pit projects, like by fire pit project, I mean sitting around the fire, talking to friends, having a good time, that sort of thing. Or we will let hip campers use it. I am starting to tap the canned goods that we canned from the summer, even though I have not canned my final batch of tomatoes. This year I kept up on tomato canning better, in part because I didn't can as many tomatoes. I made a bunch of salsa. And I did not make a bunch of sauce because I still had a case of sauce left from last year. And what I'm finding is just our dietary needs are changing here. And so I used fewer tomatoes. So I thought, why stock even more tomatoes like I usually do? So I just went like I usually go based on the tomatoes I grow plus some from the market. I didn't do the plus some part of that. So that's just means that as tomatoes are ripe, I put them in the freezer so that I can can in December or January when it's not brutal hot. And the process of canning adds heat to my house. And so I'm kind of using the energy twice, so to speak. And that's good. In August, adding heat to your house or just burning outside, which I do, I can outside so it doesn't add heat to my house. I am wasting that resource that could be heating my house in the winter, but not everything can wait in a frozen state for me to make sauce out of it. But tomatoes totally can. So that works out. This week, we made something that required powdered sugar, which is an unusual part of what we don't usually eat sugar here, but we made a cake. And the frosting needed powdered sugar. And I didn't know that until I, at nighttime, was supposed to make this frosting and didn't have any powdered sugar. But I have a Vitamix and I had sugar. So I had powdered sugar. Did you know you can just put sugar in your Vitamix and let her go and it's powdered sugar after a while? I may never buy powdered sugar again. Like you're just paying for the grind and the fluff at that point. So that's just something that's cool about having a really good blender. I don't know if the Ninja would do that as well, but I would say it's worth a shot. the reason I went from a Ninja to a Vitamix was that I got rid of the flour grinder here because I stopped baking bread. And I bake it like once a year for Thanksgiving. And I don't like to store a bunch of flour, so I have wheat berries in storage and I grind those to make the bread. And the Vitamix will grind it. Now, it won't grind it as finely as like a cake flour, but it works for when, like, if I want to actually thicken gravy with that instead of egg yolks or something, or if I need a little flour for something, I can just go bzz, and it's done. By bzz, I mean bzz, it goes for a while. But I got that because the Ninja doesn't grind the flour finely enough. So it works for powdered sugar too. I'm sure I'll find other ways to use it eventually. In fact, I realized I have organic oats here, oat groats, and an oat roller. And I was going to buy oats from the farmer's storehouse for the farm to table dinner, but I have these really nice organic oats that are not rolled, and I have a roller. And there's a really darn good chance that the peach crisp is going to have my organic oats in it rather than farmer's storehouse ones, because I can like literally roll them right before they're used. And the flavor difference between that and something that's been, rolled a month ago, huge. It's a huge difference. Or a year ago in the case of stuff you get at the store or whatever. So, yeah. Anyway, next up, we have the frugality tip by Margot. That Margot, yes, Stalking Margot has given us the following frugality tip. She says, I like a little lemon juice in my water. And some of those bottles pour out like a waterfall, which is wasteful and makes something I don't want to drink. So this is a hack I figured out. The cap from the Worcestershire sauce bottle fits on a lot of other things, including our lemon juice bottle. So I keep the lids on hand to help regulate the amount of lemon coming out of the bottle so I don't end up wasting it when I'm trying to make my lemon water. So that's a cool one. And, think about anything you'd want to slow the flow on. Like if you want to make a bottle of something into salad dressing, boom, Worcestershire sauce. I can't say that word. Worcestershire sauce is like the top of those bottles could be used for that and to make it sort of like a balsamic pourer or whatever. So that's a pretty cool little free tool for you there. I wonder if it fits in a soda bottle, like the old school soda bottles. That'd be fun to play with. Next up, we have Operation Independence, where we talk about building local ongoing revenue into our lives. And like the biggest, most impressive thing that's been happening is our Airbnb has been renting like hotcakes since I got back from SRF. And it's really great to see that base camp space doing so well right now, because that's been part of our foundation for generating ongoing revenue here for the homestead when we talk about designing your homestead with profit in mind, right? And building your revenue stack and having different streams that feed each other. That's a big part of ours, is that sort of agritourism throughput is important for us, or we don't get as much business for things like coffee, like direct sales coffee, that sort of thing. So that's been pretty cool. We've had a good month, and I'm not surprised because October is leaf peeping month, even though this is not prime leaf peeping location from where you would travel in the United States. But people do get out and about in October and in Tennessee because it's not as hot. It's really good hiking season now in November. And yes, it can get cold, but even into December, it's a great time to camp and to hike and to go do things here. Way more pleasant to be outside right now than in July. Just saying. Although Tactical has been walking around with like a hat on and all bundled up. So he's not quite acclimated to the switch in weather. The other thing that happens when it switches in weather right now, as an aside, is that mushrooms start blooming. And we did get a dryad saddle this weekend. So that was like clockwork after the switch from warmer to cold. So I thought that was pretty cool. Beth Emily says, Margot, you just changed my life. That's really funny. Okay, so it's time for the main topic of today's show. Again, if you have questions or want to hear about something specific on this topic, put it in all caps in the comments. I'll do my best to see it as we go. But we're going to talk about Airbnb as a revenue streams and lessons I've learned in this iteration. And understand, I've been on and off Airbnb parts of my property since 2010, 11, 12, around there. Before Airbnb was really a thing, I was temporary vacation rentaling through Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, and generally distributing flyers around and not doing that badly with it. Airbnb made it a lot easier because you tap into a network and their tool is kind of cool to use. So let's start with the most important thing, though. If you're going to just like boil this down to one lesson learned, is that every property should have a purpose. So it's not just a revenue generation machine, but it's built around a purpose. In the case of our Airbnb, it's a homestead farm experience, right? That helps, and the purpose could be it's near the Nashville Symphony. So it's the symphony experience, and you can walk across the street and here are some restaurants. So you want to just think about what's the purpose of this space? And how does that feed into the bigger picture of my life? And how does that feed into the bigger picture of what I'm trying to achieve by putting it on Airbnb? Because when you tell the story, it's more attractive to your renter. So that's like the lens through which we're talking about Airbnbs even to begin with. And why we went and took Basecamp and turned it back into an Airbnb rental is that the Basecamp Lodge has a working mission related to the Holler Hub project that we've talked about here, right? But I don't need it 24/7 to do the primary purpose for which we are using it. And I might as well make some money on it when I'm not using it for that. And other people can tap into it as a resource if they want to do events there, for example. So the easiest and lowest hanging for us to do was to go into an Airbnb model with that. In addition, because I can say it's not available now and it's available at this other time, and then it can be rented at that other time. So it's really about turning the space into a system that feeds the Holler Hub project, which is a community of people and serving transients who come through, not like transients is the wrong word. Nomads from our network is a better way to explain it. That sounded like, hobos or something. But we're really connecting people with food and freedom and taking control of their lives, right? But within the context of how do you make a permaculture community work? And we have this underserved nomadic population that they'll come to events and things, but then they're like, it'd be really cool if I could park my bus somewhere for a month and then move on. And that's something that we wanted to tap into, and they want to work on permaculture projects. But also, we have a number of homesteaders who would like to have a profitable homestead. And I think that was part of how we really started connecting these dots. And I realized what happens when people get out and connect with nature is they reset, they start taking control of their mental health and a whole lot of other things. So there's a lot of bigger picture behind it, none of which is important on Airbnb at all. Not at all. The reset's important. The peace and quiet and that connecting with nature is important, but my bigger why they don't care about. So Basecamp Lodge was formerly a longer term rental, a month-to-month rental that's gross revenue was $1,600 a month, which was less than market. But I was doing that because we were serving LFTN community members. And that gave them a chance to be in the area and find their next step. So it was already serving people who are coming in, but also looking to leave again, interestingly enough. And as we started getting the Holler Hub concept put together more, which you all have heard about over the last 6 months or so, I realized that having classes there instead of at my house made a lot more sense for a couple of reasons. One, I can come back to my house while people are still there and they can still be classing and I can not be classing and get other things accomplished or go to bed when they stay up later than I do. But also it helps us have the infrastructure set up for classes all the time rather than what we were doing here, which is like set it up, take it down, set it up, take it down, set it up, take it down. and that's a lot of time. So there's a time savings there as well. And that classroom has really big, tall windows that's light when we do the kitchen classroom piece. And I think that really helps keep people awake because my house is very dark um, inside. And so if you're here all day learning how to can, it's like, and I haven't seen the sun in 100 years. And, it makes people, the energy of the class is better in a light environment. We do have a basement classroom there too that's a dark environment, and that is what it is. But anyway, so it's really worked as that. But in order to support that, we either would need somebody in there as a month-to-month renter who doesn't mind hordes of people coming in and out of their house, which is not super, that's not most people's priority. Or we had to think of a different way to generate revenue in between classes, right? So as we think about Base Camp Lodge being the lodge, we realized, okay, if we add Airbnb to it, it can generate some income when it's not being used for training. And it actually serves the overall mission of the Holler Hub project because it brings new people to the Holler Homestead who may not listen to my podcast, right? Which is how most people come in. And that taps into other people who are similarly minded, similar priorities, because they're out here for a farm experience. They're not out here to get, drunk and fall off the balcony. So and that has happened. So it's just new people that we may not have connected with otherwise. And that then connects us with potential partners and new community members that we may not have met in other ways. So using tools like Airbnb or Vacation Rental by Owner, VRBO, can open us up to audiences beyond listeners and expand the opportunities surrounding the Holler Hub and really get that community buzz going for us. So when I think about what's happened, so we relaunched, because I launched this as an Airbnb for like 3 weeks, and then our first month-to-month renter moved in, and they were going to be in for like 2 months, and they were in for over a year. And, from there, it's just been, month-to-month renters have been wanting to come in. In August, we launched as an Airbnb, but I also had classes, and I realized some things as a result of lower rental density that I'll share with you today. So some things that have worked well, though. Let's go here first. Let's do the positive. It's like the poop sandwich. We'll do the positive and then lessons learned and then talk about the positive. Yep. So what's working and some wins that we've had have been, well, October's gone really well. We've been booked every available weekend in October. Tapping into tourists and fall travel season here. But also that's because I realized making sure it's available on the weekend means you get it rented, because people are more likely to rent on the weekend than they are during the week. And in October, we've earned about $650. That may not sound like very much, but in contrast to what we've earned other months since launching it, it's about 3 times. It's 3 times our highest month in the last 3 months, right? And we've still been able to host events. And part of that is that I know there's a trade-off. When I have an event, I can't rent the Airbnb unless, we set it up to rent it to specific people going to the event. But usually an instructor is staying there during that time, or like on an Airbnb, you're not going to be like, and there's going to be 25 people in your living room on Saturday. Smile, right? So there's a deliberate trade-off for weekend revenue when we do events, because people come to events on weekends more than they come during the week. And other things that are working to get it rented have been, I've actually had no cleaning fee. I say low cleaning fee. There will eventually be a cleaning fee, but I have no cleaning fee, but clear expectations. And my clear expectations are that we expect that you basically clean up after yourself like a normal human. I don't expect you to clean it before you leave. Like, we come in and do sheets, towels, wash the bathroom, wipe down all the counters, mop and vacuum the floors, reset the beds, like all of that stuff. And I'm not expecting you to do that part, but we expect you to do your dishes before you leave and not just leave dirty dishes all over the place and that sort of thing, right? And the reason we wanna do that is we want our guests to get a reset, and if you're worried about, "Okay, I gotta get to the airport, and I have to do 2 hours cleaning in this house before I go to the airport, and blah," right? That's not cool, and we've all stayed in Airbnbs like that where you're like, "Really? You want me to run the vacuum before I leave? Like, what's my cleaning fee for?" Right? You've been there, right? By having no cleaning fee right now, I've just said, clean up after yourself as you go. If you don't take the garbage out, that's fine. If you want to take it out, it's on your way out. And just let me know when you're gone so we can come and take the garbage out because I never want garbage sitting in there smelling. And, take all your stuff out of the fridge or whatever, or tell me you're leaving it and we'll throw it away basically when we get there. Leave the sheets on the bed. Don't worry about stripping the beds and all that. I like the sheets on the bed because I can see if there are any spots on it, which happen from time to time. No big deal. I can treat that spot before it gets dryered in. If it gets dryered in, I've just ruined a whole set of sheets for the Airbnb, right? Like nobody likes to think about that, but that's a thing we do. And then we assume any towel that's out, even if it looks very tidy and like it wasn't used, was used, and we wash it. So um it's sort of those sorts of things, but that low cleaning fee and clear expectations has worked super well for us. And at this initial stage, I have purposely kept our nightly fee on the lower side for the market. So usually I'm trying to go premium, top of the market sort of pricing. Not right now. Right now I need 5-star reviews, which means people need to come in and we get 5-star reviews, right? And that builds credibility for the farm experience. And when people get here, and well, so the cool part has been pretty much everybody who's come here has been attracted to the farm experience, not just looking for somewhere to stay nearby. And that means that, in one case, somebody got there and said, "I really want to see your sheep." And it just happened to be at feeding hour, which is we give them sheep treats at night. We don't like actually feed them grain or anything, but we give them sheep treats. And so Tactical got sheep treats. It was like, "Okay, come on over." And they got to stand among the sheep as they ate, the sheep treats. And that means you can kind of get close to them because sheep are skittery around people they don't know. And that, of course, gave me the idea of adding an add-on where it's a sheep, you can add on the sheep experience for $25 or whatever, and you'll get to be with the sheep during feeding and reach out and touch them, and then we'll, like whatever. There are all these things you can start adding. Those things take time though. So that purposefully low nightly rate helps us get initial 5-star reviews. And we've been getting 5-star reviews to build credibility to then have it come up higher on the search in Airbnb. And also when people read the reviews, it tells them more about the property that you may not have put in your description. And I think that's helpful too. I think the biggest thing though has been making meaningful connections with the guests. So I don't currently have a key code entrance. I give them a key. I meet them in person. And for some people, that sounds like a horror show. Like they just want to use the key code, go in and not see anybody. And that's cool. But it's a farm stay, right? There's chickens and stuff around. So I've wanted to meet the people and kind of show them some of the idiosyncrasies of a country home. Like, there's a septic system, so only flush toilet paper and a couple of other things. Also, the light switches in the place are all weird. So I just come in, I'm like, yeah, it was built in 1982 and they put light switches in weird places and just here they are, that sort of thing. Most of it's not weird. So that's been part of the fun. But making those meaningful connections has been really helpful, for getting a 5-star review, because then we like each other. And so they want to say something nice, but also I can hear what their interests are and get to know them a little bit. And so just in this month, I've met a couple who were in from another state who have 10 glamping sites on Airbnb and VRBO that are domes and tents with a bathhouse. So that's cool. And so I said, "Oh, great. So I'm brand new to this whole Airbnb thing because we just opened it up. Give me feedback after your stay so we can make it even better. Like if you see anything, let me know, but I'm really interested in what you're doing." Right. And then they also asked me, they told me where I could source domes, which was cool. And I'm not planning to anytime soon, but that's one option for some of the camping cabins that we put around. And they told me they have glamping tents and domes and other things, and they said the domes rent the best. So, okay, super helpful feedback, right? The other thing that the other people we met was a young couple with 2 kids who came through and are moving to the area. They were staying in there to look at possible rental properties in the area, and interested in homesteading, interested in the farm stay experience. So they just happened to be there when 2 sheep were in the backyard because we grazed the sheep through that property. And so they got to see, our most friendly lambs, interestingly enough. And then there were chickens there, and the wife told me she cooks sourdough bread, and I told her about the classes, and they're interested in the classes. She's interested in teaching a sourdough class. Well, that's somebody who's never heard of the Living Free in Tennessee podcast, right? But it's somebody who might be a really great addition to our community long term. And if they're moving to the local area, that's just another homesteader or homesteader interested person in the local area. So that's been all the things that have gone well and things I've just sort of learned along the way. But I really think that in-person greeting has made a difference for us. And part of that is people drive down my road and they start hearing banjos and they get a little like skeezed out, and then they meet me and I'm friendly and I smile and stuff. And they're like, oh, okay, this isn't so bad. Right. Otherwise, you're just seeing almost no traffic go by ever. And Tactical on his four-wheeler with his hair flying, taking care of sheep and nothing else. And you hear banjos. You're like, are there eyes in the woods? But and I understand it, like there's a stigma with country populations that exists. And I think when people meet you in person, they're like, oh, okay, that's not what I thought it was, sort of thing. So where did it get messy though? I've only been doing this iteration 3 months. I can tell you about messes from my past, but we'll talk about recent messes. So I had one guest leave it enough of a mess that it took 8 man-hours to clean it up. And it wasn't like they did their dishes and everything, and that wasn't the issue. It's like everything got moved around to different places and had to be put back there. I do allow pets to come, and I don't have a great way for people staying there right now to help me not have to clean for a really long time after pets. But after pets are there, I clean for a really long time because I don't want any hair anywhere. And that means, like washing comforters or whatever on the beds. It's all of it. So after that one that took so much time, that's when I added the language about there's no cleaning fee. So we expect you to clean up as you go, because some of the things were just like, they just didn't clean anything as they went, sort of thing. And then it wasn't like an abusive beer spilled horror show or anything. It was just like everything needed a very deep cleaning. And not that we don't deep clean it ever, but we sort of are doing things on a cycle. Deeper in this place this time, but then there's a standard clean to reset, which is washing all of the linens, wiping down all the surfaces, resetting the bed, then vacuuming everything, dusting everything, vacuuming everything, mopping everything, and that gets that's a basic reset. Sometimes then we'll be like, okay, wash the windows in this room, or deeper things on the cleaning side, or look for spider webs on the ceiling. In fact, we're coming to the time change. It's going to be like change the batteries in all of the smoke detectors so we don't have somebody in the middle of the night with the bip. Got to think about that if you got an Airbnb. So that was one thing. But the other thing, and as a result of that, changing the language, and then I'm going to budget for a vacuum that stays over there that people can use, so that the pet friendly stays, they can actually help me with the hair problem. I purposely put non-fabric furniture in there because I knew I was letting people bring their dogs, and upholstery just attracts the hair. So that's something that if you're gonna do pets, think about what what hair we'll get into when you're choosing things, or how easy it is to wash that king size comforter on your bed. I think another big thing is that clean beats new every time. What do I mean by that? Well, if you go into an Airbnb and it's just grimy, which I've been in some grimy ones, they're like they cleaned, but they never clean. They never pull down the light fixtures ever and clean in them or whatever. And I mean, I know that's picky, but there's just, I would say my house is kind of grimy where I live, actually, but the Airbnb is not. If you keep it really clean, but it's not completely remodeled or showcase new, the fact that it's clean goes further. And part of helping to keep it clean is to set boundaries. And I would not let parties happen. Um, I do have a pet fee because I know I'm going to spend extra time cleaning when somebody brings their pet in. So that's, it's not an exorbitant fee, but it's like, I'm going to have to clean out the vents and stuff when after your pet is there. So, you know, clean beats new every time, but then that means you got to spend time cleaning. And you can wreck an entire review by having something left behind that's gross. Like in the shower after one of my tenants left this month, somebody with long hair was there, and there was like the shower hair on the wall, like long ladies' hair on the wall. And I don't even know how that happens, but I've gone to a hotel and that was in my quote unquote clean room. Like taking time to look for stuff like that's really helpful, because that's going to make somebody absolutely hate your place. You will not get a 5-star review if there's a big glob of hair on the wall of your shower. That means you didn't clean the wall of your shower, right? So just remember that if you're running it, like when you hire a cleaning service, they miss stuff like that. So you have to figure out how do you set it up so they don't miss stuff like that. And then if they do, you have to figure out how do we talk to them about it, or do we just go with another service, that sort of thing. Knowing what your check-in and check-out policy is really helpful. And then don't be nice. That doesn't mean don't be a good hostess or host. Just don't be nice about it all the time. If you really need somebody to check out by 11, 11 is your checkout time. And if you have a guest coming in at 3 and they ask for a late checkout, no, I'm sorry, I have somebody coming in. And don't feel bad about it. A lot of people will be like, oh, that's okay. You can stay till 12. Well, if you tell them they can stay till 12, they're going to be there till 1. And then you only have 2 hours to clean the place. And what if they're the person who left a big mess behind that's more than 2 hours to clean? Right? So, it's not really mean to stick to your rules, but if you don't have somebody checking in and they ask for a late checkout, that's when you can say, you're like, oh yeah, sure, you can stay until X time, and then realize they're going to leave an hour later than you tell them. That is what it is. So, hey, Alabama says, I'd rather stay somewhere clean than new. Hotels have forgotten that little tidbit. I haven't seen a very clean hotel room in a long time, even the pricier ones, and I think it's a standard of clean. That's just not there anymore. And I noticed it's regional. So certain regions of the United States do a better job cleaning their hotels than other regions. That's just a thing. That was a culture shock for me, for sure. So then with Airbnb, how do we do pricing and positioning? I think you need to balance the purpose. So this is back to what's the purpose of your property, and you need to balance what the purpose is with the price. So I've been looking a lot at camping cabin sorts of things that are in the $40 to $60 range, which is not very much money. And Tactical and I have been having glamper discussions, not glamper like my camper glamper, but if we're going to put camping cabins up, should they have power? Should they have heat? It's camping. Do you get heat camping? No. Should they have AC? It's camping. Do you get AC camping? No. Well, okay, but is Tennessee hot in July? And will we rent it more and make more money if we add a window unit somehow? Probably, but maybe not. We don't know. So we've had a lot of talks about that. So I've been just like off on this research thing, looking at everybody else's options. And I've come to the conclusion that we're going to offer some cabin-y options that don't have heating and cooling, or maybe has heating but not cooling. and no electricity and battery operated lanterns, like that sort of thing, if we decide there's light, and see how it goes. And if it doesn't rent at all, design it in a way where air conditioning can be, or power and air conditioning can be. So that doesn't really pertain to how we set the price for our Airbnb. So then the question is, how do you price your Airbnb? Hey, Alabama says, how close is the rental to your home? It is next door. It's a 10th of a mile walk. I tell them I'm next door if they have any problems. And I actually like that because somebody can leave. I can pop over, get all the linens out, start the laundry, and pop back home and have assessed if I have to take the garbage out or whatever. That works for me time wise. And then I don't have to worry about calling a cleaning crew in. If it was across the lake, 45 minutes away, I would have to have cleaners do it because I have a full day every day doing the homestead stuff here. So that is, part of the deal. So the way we set the pricing for Base Camp Lodge, though, was I looked at a $3,000 a month gross revenue for it, just as a starting point. I decided that's what we should for sure be earning on that long term out of all of the different revenue things, just to make sure we're covering some money for the time we spend on it, the base costs of maintenance and all of that stuff. So it'd be better if we doubled that number, but you got to start somewhere. And that would be 3,000 if it was fully booked every day. So I divided it by 30, saying, okay, like we have to get $100 for a rental that's like a low impact rental. An event is a high impact rental, right? Because an event is a lot more people through, and a lot more supplies are used up, and a lot more messes made. So the cleaning after an event is much more involved so when it's being used as an event venue, that price goes up. If it's just being used as a quick Airbnb, somebody through and out in a day or two, the impact on that's much lower. And that's something that's been important to observe because we've been able to see all of that happen. Somebody who stays a week leaves it a lot messier than a person who stays a day or two, unless they were cleaning the whole time, which most people aren't. And that's without them leaving it abusive clean. It's just like, it's the law of how houses getting messy or dirty or get. It's like, there's just, if I have somebody through for a night and I clean it, and I have somebody through for another night and I clean it, and then somebody's through for another night and I clean it, that's 3 times the house has been cleaned in 1 week. It's just going to be overall easier to clean those times unless somebody does something silly. So my base price had to be about $100. Because we're in a phase of gathering our 5-star reviews, I kept the pricing low to reflect the space. Also, that it is not newly remodeled. I have 1 usable bedroom. The other bedroom is not a bedroom. It's a library. And I do have a rollaway we can put in there, but it's an extra fee for that because I have to do more sheets. And none of this is remodeled. Like, it really could use windows. We're in the process of painting the outside. We just put a new deck on, and the floor inside, even though we put the floor in new 5 years ago, it's already like looking like it could use another floor replacement, right? But it's clean, so people love it, and you get a reset in nature. I tried using Airbnb's automated pricing, which sort of, it's like surge pricing. It goes up if there's high demand, to test how it does during peak season. I haven't seen any peaks. It's just always priced at the lowest. No matter, even if the whole market is priced higher, it's priced at the lowest. And that tells me that right now, places aren't renting a lot if their algorithm really works, which it probably does. So this week, after having 3 sets of people through and cleaning it, I realized that I need to have a backup cleaning system for when I'm on the road to reset it so we can continue getting revenue. So I called cleaning services in the area to get what the cleaning price would be for it. And the answer is my nightly price is less than they will charge me to clean it. So that was an important piece of information. If you're going to set up an Airbnb, I would check some of that too, just to see like what would it be for a cleaning fee, because paying more to have it cleaned than I get to have a guest means I'd rather not have a guest than have a guest when I'm out of town. I do plan to add a cleaning fee in the future. And if I'm out of town, I can't accept a single night and still get it cleaned and then have another single night. Like, it won't work at the price it's at right now. So that just tells me it's got a minimum stay of 4 or 5 nights if I'm out of town, is what it is, right? Because I travel, that I am the barrier unless somebody else is here to clean it who isn't going to charge me that much. And by the way, the fee that they were quoting, I was like, yeah, I can see that fee, but also it takes me 45 minutes to clean it in between guests most of the time. So, but they got to drive there. They're not nearby to deal with laundry. So they're thinking they got to get the laundry done all the way. And they're also thinking when you clean a house that somebody lives in for a week, that's one scale versus like 45 minutes because they were only there a night. So I think the important thing, though, is that the focus remains on mission aligned guests and not just the volume booking from a pricing standpoint and from a best practices standpoint. So MJ Work says, if doing camping cabin style, what about restrooms? That's a great question. So you can do camping cabins with composting restrooms or with tapped into a septic, or you can have a bathhouse. So we have a composting outhouse and plan to have a shower house over there long term for the campers. So they'll end up having probably a centralized outdoor kitchen and some other infrastructure there that they can use so that it can be, put together that way. And that's the whole point of the more like camping glamping thing. And I don't want to call it glamping if there's not a bathroom attached that's private and clean, a heating and air conditioning, because when I see glamping, that's what I see people setting up. It's like closer to nature, but you're in a hotel room, which has been more, we've been framing it more as like the miner's cabin sort of thing. And that's more of a camping experience. And the camping experience means you're going to have to walk to the head. That's just what it's priced accordingly. We'll just put it that way. Like I traveled all over the world, really, but a lot in Europe in youth hostels, and you're sharing a room with bunk beds with multiple people in a shared bathroom. But it's, I was paying 10 or 20 bucks a night for that when I was doing it. And you had to be, check-in was late in the day, 4 or 5 o'clock. You had to be out by 8 or 9 o'clock. Like, it's literally just to sleep. And then you go out and about and check stuff out. That's what you do. And sometimes they ask you to help, clean dishes or something. But that, we're not quite going that rustic, but knowing that I did that when I was younger, that tells me that other people could do that when they're younger. And some people like sleep in their tent all the time. We just had somebody through here who has been crashing in her car while she travels around. And, she got a day at Base Camp Lodge where she could take a shower and all of those things. And it was nice for her to sleep in a bed. And then she's back to sleep in her car for the next week, right? While she travels to another part of the country. That's just, and people use it that way. People do that all the time. So, what if I had a camping cabin with a shared bathhouse at a price that was lower than what Base camp is? People would be stoked about that. What if we occasionally fed meals? People would be stoked about that, right? So, and that goes back to keeping it about the purpose of the property. So we're never wavering off of the Holler Hub purpose as part of the Airbnb. Like, my goal isn't to make it a high-end resort that caters to water skiers who go to the lake. There's plenty of people doing that around here. We're doing a whole nother thing. Hey, Alabama says safety is a concern and a selling point. You would be a safer option with a bathroom than a park. Yeah, exactly. And we know who's coming in when we're booking them through these services. So don't underestimate the power of using some of these services that charge fees who have done screening before the person comes in. And then it's kind of like built-in screening with the review process, even though I think you are incentivized to leave as good a review on a person as you can. Like, unless there's a real nightmare, I don't have a reason to give somebody a really bad review. If it's not it's like, oh, they left their dirty socks in the couch sort of thing, which has happened in the last month. It's like, well, those are going in the garbage. That's the other thing. When you're cleaning, look under the cushions of the couch and look under all the beds because stuff just gets lost. And then somebody finds a dirty sock under the bed. And I've been in Airbnbs where that happened and I didn't get mad at them, but I was like, I guess you got to look under the bed in case somebody kicked something under there and just didn't realize it happened. So, when we talk about operations of running an Airbnb or a short-term rental, I think it's important, just like we always talk about, what's your system? How do you have systems that keep it running? So, what I know after running this Airbnb, like the first time through, resetting it took a really long time. It took 2 or 3 hours. At this point, a reset over there takes 45 to 60 minutes to get everything handled after somebody's left most of the time, unless there's a problem, right? And here's why. I ask them to leave the dishes clean or at least start the dishwasher on the way out the door, right? And that's reasonable. I shouldn't have to do your dishes. And so when it comes to cleaning the kitchen, what I'm looking at is I'll have to put dishes away. I'll have to wipe down all the counters and the sinks and change the sponge out and change the towels out and all of that. Maybe wipe down the inside of the fridge. That doesn't take that long unless there are like spills everywhere, which is rare because most people have taken to heart that they could wipe the counter as they go. And so while the counter may have something on it, it's not usually bad. Always check the coffee maker filter. That's the thing most cleaning people also forget is they leave the and then you have the mold. I did that once in the last 3 months. I was like, oh yeah, I know that. I should always check that. They got up, they made their coffee, they did their dishes, they washed the pot, they did not pull the thing out because they forgot it existed, right? So the way I got the reset to 45 to 60 minutes was by doing things in a specific order that works. First of all. Secondly, and we've just finally gotten all of this in place. I have double linens, double towels, double everything. So I don't have to get the laundry done all the way and things reset after everything's gone through the dryer because I do at least 2 loads of laundry after each guest. So that avoids a bottleneck, right? So I come in. So here's the order. I come in. I assess what the place is. Like I just do a walkthrough. Is there any chicanery throughout that? And by chicanery, I mean, is there like crazy smelly garbage or something weird out of place or a burn mark on the floor, or I don't even know what it could be. Curtains have fallen off. We had curtains fall off the other day and it wasn't their fault and I fixed it. But, I just sort of do that walkthrough to see how they left it. Did they leave anything behind like their computer that looks important that I might want to text them about? And then on that walkthrough, I grab all of the sheets, all of the towels, all of the linens, and I just pile it at the top of the stairs to go to the basement where we do the laundry. And then I look through and see if there's anything else that needs to be taken care of in that first pass. And that would be things like maybe I'll take out the garbages too if they're smelly, or I'll look outside for cigarette butts or whatever it is. I go downstairs, I start the laundry, the first load of laundry, and then I come upstairs and I clean the whole bathroom except for the floors. So I do the shower, I do the tub, I do the toilet, I reset the toilet paper. I put extra rolls out if we need to do that. The sink, and sometimes the sink in this one in particular gets a little buildup on it. So I get that scrubbed out. Once that's done, I close the door and walk out of that room. And then I wipe down the kitchen. So counters, I look in the oven, wipe out the oven, the drip trays. I'm actually going to be getting a whole new drip. I'm going to get 2 sets of drip trays so I can bring them home if they get bad and run them through my dishwasher in between. Yeah. See, double sets of things helps speed things up. And then I do all the dusting. And, if there's a time to change the sheets, I do that then. But I have new sheets already. So we reset the bed. And I reset the towels in the bathroom and the towels in the kitchen. Make sure all the dishes have been put away as part of doing the kitchen. And only then do I start vacuuming the whole house. And I vacuum the whole house. Oh, the other thing I do reset is the linens on the tables, the tablecloth, whatnot. I reset the whole house. I will have, as part of the vacuuming, checked under the cushions in the sofas. And When the vacuuming's done, I mop on the way out. And if all of that was done during the single washing cycle of the first load of laundry, I change the laundry into the dryer and start the next one and walk out the door. If somebody's coming in, though, I don't start that second load of laundry. So I just do it, another time, unless they're not right away coming in. So having that system figured out has really helped. And we just like to make sure there's supplies and all of those other things. If a pet stays, it adds me an hour of cleaning to the vacuuming because it's harder to get any hair out different places. And I have a really good vacuum for pet hair, so that's the other thing that's been super helpful. And so there's an extra fee for the pet, and I'm usually looking around for other pet related things like poop in the yard. If there was a dog there, you're supposed to clean up after your pet, but not everybody does. But so far, everybody has who's been there. And then I think the big critical practice for keeping an Airbnb running is, unless you're outsourcing your cleaning, always start get at least the first iteration done as close to immediately after checkout so that you're ready for a last minute booking. So this happened to me the other day. The couple who owned 10 Airbnbs left and there was nobody booked. It was like a Friday night thing. There was nobody booked for Saturday night. And they left at 11. Okay. And so at 11, I went over and I do the first phase, which is just the sheets and make sure the bathroom is clean, and wipe down the kitchen. And then I was like, I'm not going to vacuum and dust and all that, because if it's another 7 days before that happens, I will vacuum and dust and mop right before the people come in. So it's clean. I also hadn't made the bed yet. I was washing the sheets at my house because my washer is faster when I got a booking. And the person's like, "Can I check in early?" And I was like, "It depends on how long it takes the sheets to dry," because at that point I only had one pair of sheets and now I have another pair of sheets. But if I wouldn't have already have done that first phase, I would have been like, "No, you can't check in early." As a matter of fact, they could check in early because I was waiting for the sheets to dry. Sheets dried, put the sheets on, vacuumed and mopped. That took 10 minutes. I was like, "Okay, you can come in." And the guy was super happy that he could get in. So that critical practice of doing the hard stuff first round that just needs to be done, A, before stuff has had a chance to dry on, it's easier to clean, and B, sets your foundation for the last minute bookings, which means more revenue because you can say yes, and it's not like, "No, I'm at choir, you can't come in," right? Um, and then the last thing is like having that personal touch and greeting the guests and telling the Holler Hub story and getting their feedback has been really helpful. When I started explaining what we were doing with the homesteading classes and all the other stuff here to the last several folks, one person just didn't care, but some of them are like, "Man, we want to come back and take this class or that class," So that opens up how you can make additional revenue, right? "Oh, well, here's the class schedule. Here's how you sign up," right? Like the coffee, here's how you buy Holler Roast. That layer is where we're working now. Now that I've got the system of the Airbnb going, that's where we're working now. But that personal touch makes all of the difference. So for me, this revenue stream is part of my overall homestead revenue stack. And for me, it represents independence. So having an independent way to make money with the stuff that we have here is really important. And having the Holler Hub pay for itself is really important, because then we can do more of these things that are impacting people who are ready to connect with homesteading, to connect with nature, to get a reset, to take ownership for their lives, right? And it proves that the mission can sustain itself with something practical. It's not just like pie in the sky, Holler Hub, Holler Hub, Holler Hub, but we never do anything. That never works in my life, right? But also, we're looking to turn this into a model for other homesteaders who are sinking into debt because they have not designed their homesteads with profit in mind. You want your land to fund what you're doing as best you can. The more that happens, the less you get stuck in a rat race of earning money outside so that you can fund your homesteading lifestyle, because that's just then a really expensive hobby. It's better if you can flip the math on that and start bringing in the revenue you need to live from where you are. And that's really what the homestead revenue stack was built for, is to start thinking, how do I bring money in the door and value to other people so that this life is a life I can live? And I think it means having multiple revenue streams for sure. So how do you apply that, right? I think if you're looking at doing something like an Airbnb or a hip camp, don't build the Taj Mahal rental. And this is something I fall prey to. Start with your minimum viable product. So Base Camp Lodge was a minimum viable product to begin with. I listed everything that's in there. It doesn't have lots of extras. It's got 2 sets of towels that you have access to while you're there, not like 9,000 towels. So if you're a towel consuming maniac, then we need to talk about how many towels you need going in, or you need to bring extra towels. That's why I list that stuff, right? And it's priced accordingly. That structure I already had, you know, some basic furniture. I had a bed, some bed stands, some lamps, a sofa, a dining table. I'm using my event dishes there. Like, I didn't even buy dishes. I was just like, well, I bought pots and pans because I didn't want to put Teflon in there. And so I bought a porcelain coated set of pans. And I have cast iron in there with a dire warning about don't use these if you're going to put them in the dishwasher. But other than that, it doesn't have a lot of decorations. It has some games people can play, but it just doesn't have a lot of extra stuff. And from a cleaning standpoint, that makes it way easier. But some people are uncomfortable if they don't have tchotchkes around. And those people probably shouldn't be the people who rent Base Camp Lodge at this time, because it's a minimum viable product. But if I was going to do a hip camp, I would say, what's a minimum viable product for my land? And it's to have a dedicated space. For me, it's some way of dealing with bathroom function. You can say there's no water and they have to bring their own water, or you give them a water source. So you see what I'm saying there? You don't have to have electricity. You can make it nicer. Ryan Steva built a really cool solar rainwater collection composting outhouse / shower house with a propane driven shower. That was pretty cool. But if you build the Taj Mahal rental, you spend a lot of money, and if you get into it and then discover you don't even like doing this Airbnb or this hip camp thing, you just wasted a lot of money. So that's something to think about. And so Tactical and I have these conversations because we are getting ready to open up additional ways for people to spend time in the holler, where, I'll be like, I want to do this thing. And then he's like, well, we could do it this really simple way. And I'm like, but what about the air conditioning? He's like, Nicole, not everybody has to have air conditioning. I'm like, I'm a woman of a certain age and I don't like to be hot. And so for me, air conditioning is really important, but some people don't care. And so I'm like, well, okay, but let's talk about it, because if we get this put up and I can't rent it because people just really do want air conditioning and there aren't enough people who don't care to rent this, then what are we going to do? And we'll have these long conversations, sort of talking back and forth about design options. And then we'll get to the end and I'll say, okay, so if we're going to do that, how do we do that so we could put power in, or a solar system in, or an air conditioner in, but we don't do it out of the chute, and see if it rents without it. And then he's like, yeah, we'll do it this way. So that, I think it's worth having those conversations. Actually, recently I realized I can build a platform and put a glamping tent on it that costs about $500. So it's a nicer tent than a tent. And that's what it is. So, Ryan's in the comments on Facebook. He said, I just happened to be watching today. Here's a link to the video about that. Let me see if I can copy that. Is there any way to copy? Do you want to make a copy? Well, okay. So guys, I can't make a copy of that comment from my tool. So Ryan, email that to me so I can put it in the show notes later. Anyway, but then that goes back to clean trumps new every time. So if you're going to build a rustic thing, it's still great if you have thought about how you get it clean, even if it's like, I can hose down the inside of this thing so all the cobwebs and dust is off it, which will just come from the air. and it dries in this amount of time and then it's ready to go again, right? Like that happens once a month or something. Um, I think though that the biggest mindset shift you need to have if you're going into this world is being comfortable letting strangers on your land. And that is one of the biggest objections I hear to this as a revenue stream is I don't want strangers on my land because they may steal something, hurt something, break something, hurt me, hurt my animals. And I think you can't say that's not a valid thing, but also most people with bad intentions aren't looking around to pay hundreds of dollars to sleep in your barn, right? But if you are that way, think about, okay, but where on my property could that work where I am insulated from that risk? And how could that work? Um, I think the thing to keep in mind is that short-term rentals are not like easy money. You're going to have time involved in it, but it can be a good way to have some predictable money, first of all. And you have to be ready to respond to messages when people are coming in, spend time building the guidebook, handling maintenance, that sort of thing. At least having somebody who can clean if you're not cleaning and be available when problems arise. So if you don't have a lifestyle that supports that, then you need to have a very different kind of rental. I think about Brian Norton though, who set up a hip camp where it was like self check-in, self checkout. He just gets paid and he doesn't clean in between because you're supposed to leave the campground clean. Like you might want to go more hip camp than more Airbnb if you're going to do that sort of thing. Um, if you haven't thought those things through and gotten comfortable with it, you may hate the process if it happens. But I think a fast reset really helps with that if you're going to do that, and handling the hard to do stuff first makes a big difference. But getting in the mindset about how can I allow myself to make revenue off this thing by letting people be closer to me is a big one. And how can I screen for weirdos? One way to screen for weirdos is don't be the cheapest. I said it. I said what I said. Um, so what's next for us? My plan is we've just started allowing people who are not me to run events at Base Camp Lodge, which is a higher price than the rental price because it has a much bigger impact in the number of people. Plus, we need to be around to kind of be helper staff when that happens. I have the first one already in the works, and I haven't heard if slash when it's happening, but the person seemed very interested in doing that. So we'll see how that goes. And, that could be anything from a medical class to a permaculture design course to whatever you want to do, right? We have this resource that's available that has a downstairs basement classroom that you don't have access to. And by the way, the Airbnb does not get any access to the basement. It's locked because I have all my event stuff down there. So this goes back to, people damaging your stuff. Well, if they don't have access to it, they don't damage it unless they kick in that door. And then, I guess that's what homeowners insurance is for. And our next expansion is to add those miners cabins to the area, or at least the first one, to diversify the offerings and get the shower house, that sort of. If only I knew somebody who knew how to build a shower house, Ryan. I'm not sure I have the budget for it right now, but it's a very cool shower house that he's built and worth watching that video. And each one of these steps builds us one step closer to the Holler Hub vision, because while we do want to be doing the classes that we do and the farm to table dinners and the wild edible walks and all those things, I'd also love for other community members to use it to also help us reach our mission of connecting people with nature and homesteading skills and permaculture and all of those, and each other, by running their events there. So it's a system, like we're setting this up as a system that connects people, that sustains the land, and that generates income, not just for us, but for the community. And one of the ways that can be done is people running events there. So again, it goes back to it's a property with a purpose, not just the purpose of having a big payoff. So I think every property should have a purpose, and that it is reasonable to benefit from your property financially. And that's how land sustains itself and how people make a living off it. And if you think about it, you just like for all of humanity, we've been trying to live off the land. That's what it's there for. So I'm pretty excited about the revenue stream of the short-term rentals because it gives us the flexibility to do the other things that are the bigger picture of the property, but it also gives us a chance to tell the story of what we're doing here and get more people involved. So I hope you enjoyed our big discussion of the ways or lessons learned from Airbnb. I saw somebody saying, "How do you handle insurance?" And the answer is it's complicated, but it's simple. Airbnb includes insurance with their stuff. It's not enough to cover you if something really bad happens. So you have to have that conversation with your insurance. So I already have liability insurance there for it being a rental. I actually think I should have an umbrella policy at this point. So definitely I can tell you I don't know the answer for you, but I know that that's a good question that you should be asking, and you should look at what you need to do to protect yourself because things can go wrong, people can sue you, all of those things, and that's an extra expense in the maintenance of your property, right? But also worth handling because if somebody falls or something, you wanna have that resource for them too. When I do an event, I get a separate event insurance policy for the event in addition to all the other stuff because some liability policies will be like, "Not for the event, though. We won't cover it then." So, there you go. So, if you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollerroast2.com. 2, consider becoming a member. To find out more about that, go to livingfreeintennessee.com. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week.